Good afternoon. My name is Ted Mondale. I'm chair of the Metropolitan Sports Facilities Commission. We have a fine panel here for you today. What we wanted to do is basically go through the plan, if you will, as has been vetted and will be brought up Monday in Minnesota. And Monday is game day, and it's a game we intend to win.
All right.
So what I'm going to do to start off is I'm going to walk you through the basic deck and the structure of the deal and how it came together and what were the values and principles that were put into this deal. I'd like to start by saying this is a problem that was identified 12 years ago. The legislature has dealt with this issue sometimes aggressively and sometimes non-aggressively, going back 12 years. We started working on this package, the team, the state, the bipartisan group, some previous local partners and new local partners, over a year and a half ago. We have looked at numerous scenarios. We have had the direction of legislative leadership. We have talked to the different legislators. We've looked at different financing plans, et cetera. And we've been through 7 committees with this process. And quite frankly, this week, while I think it was confusing to many, frankly, having the leadership try and deconstruct this and put this back together, and we think finding, hey, this is a pretty good deal, was actually going to be extremely helpful for the process. So the public's had their hands in this and have reviewed it. The legislature's looked at this. This has been a lot of hard work, and this is a good deal for the state of Minnesota.
We're getting really bad audio here.
Does somebody have a...
I know it's both turned off.
Anybody's cell phone needs to go next to your lap or
So
something.
it's more than the normal interference.
We just want to make sure you're listening. Hugmeyer.
Is that better? A little better?
There's still a background interference of some kind.
So let's turn off all our stuff, huh?
Yeah, put it away.
This does happen all the time.
Drop this one more time.
It's good now.
No, I think I am. I'm the guy with all the devices here. And I'm eventually decapitated.
We all have.
Yeah, turn off your defibrillator, man.
Causing
I'll need that Tuesday.
It's okay now? Are we good? Should I start over? Or
No.
pick up where I left?
No.
All right. As to the basis of this deal, this is a financially strong and conservative proposal. It uses no new taxes, and it has no general fund monies whatsoever in this package. It's a package that protects the taxpayers because we know that the revenues coming in are solid. They are fixed, and we're not relying on things that may or may not happen in the future. As you know, it has broad and growing support. It's supported by our governor, our Fortune 500 leaders, leaders in organized labor, our mayor, the entire city council, the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, the Minnesota Business Partnership, and quite frankly, according to a poll by Mason-Dixon, over 60% of the public in the state of Minnesota, when told about this deal, supports this package to keep the Vikings here in Minnesota. One of the tenets were that the Vikings would put over 50% of the overall cost of and operations of the stadium into this package, and this deal has the Vikings in at over 50%. This keeps the Vikings in Minnesota for a minimum of 30 years, with renewals for up to 20 years. So we keep, the major goal is we keep a viable Vikings franchise in Minnesota for another generation. The state will receive any part of the short-term profits should the team be sold quickly, much different, but much like the Target Center, Target Field deal. And also we were told to put a package together where the state would receive a significant direct return. 36% return to the state of Minnesota on this investment over the life cycle of 30 years of this building. We have met those guidelines, and we have a package to put forward to you that meets those principles. One of the things that we heard loud and clear, especially back when the dome roof went down, was the importance in Minnesota of having a fixed climate, fixed roof facility where our youth programs, where our civic programs, where people can rollerblade in the state of Minnesota. We have, as I said before, a funding structure that is secure. We've relied on rent. We've relied on fixed payment rather than things that are outside. The Vikings will be paying $1.3 million a game for 10 games, and that rent payment to the state for the use of that facility for 10 days will allow us to continue to run and have the kind of events that the Metrodome puts on. College baseball, high school baseball, soccer, football will all be done at the rate and the type of events that we've enjoyed over the last 30 years at the Metrodome. This is a jobs bill. Mortensen has said that this bill, that this project will create 13,000 direct and indirect construction jobs. 7,500 of those jobs are direct from this project. This is a big jobs bill, and with operations going across into the future, it'll have an impact of 3,400 jobs. This will have an impact to our hotels, to our restaurants, to our servicers, to our suppliers, and quite frankly, people that work at that stadium to make ends meet. This will be a people's stadium. It will be owned by the public, and it will be run by the public. Again, the authority is set up to have 3 members appointed by the governor and 2 members appointed by the city of Minneapolis. So while there will be a focus to make sure that the Vikings have their game day experience and the Vikings can run this facility in a proper way and be successful, the public will be looking after those 355 days so we can maximize this investment to the best way we can for the people of Minnesota, for the kids in Minnesota. There is no state risk, and there is no state money in this for the Target Center. We will work with the Vikings to design and construct a new stadium, and the city of Minneapolis and the Minnesota Vikings will pay the operational and capital improvement costs, which we believe to be sufficient to run the building in a first-class manner and keep it up to date as time goes on. The Vikings will play only one season at TCF Bank Stadium, and there's perhaps ways in the engineering that could be lessened as well, which would be an impact. One of the things that have come up in our hearings is reading the legislative language is that, the state would be on the hook for cost overruns of building the facility. We had testimony from Mortensen, and we've had letters earlier from Hunt Construction. Between the two of them, they probably built 80% of the stadiums of different venues across the country, that they would bid this in a fixed bid manner. That means a fixed bid manner means there will be absolutely no risk to the taxpayer. If we bid this out at $822, which we think it is, we will get a stadium that costs $822 and not a penny more from the bidding process. So there should not be concern by the taxpayers that they are at risk at all for any kind of overruns. Again, if I may run through very quickly, to build the facility, the Vikings investment is $427 million. The state and city combined is $548 million, a split of 58-44. And on the operating piece, the Vikings operating cost is $13 million, which is 63% of the operations or the rent of this facility. And the public side with the city contribution is $7.5 million, which is 37%. So the Vikings will be in for 63% over and use the facility 10 days. The public's in at 37% of the operating and get the facility for 355 days. With us today is Craig Skine, who is an expert and has been involved in many stadium and convention center financing deal, and he's going to spend a minute and chat with you here as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name again is Craig Skyme. I'm with CSL International. I have been working with the Sports Facilities Commission and others who have been involved in this project for some time now on putting together a financial package that takes into consideration all the parameters that Chairman Mondale spoke to. The idea of not raising taxes, the idea of not using general funds, monies, was all part of the thinking as this was put together. Overall, again, this is a $975 million proposal, 427 coming from the team and private sector, 398 from the state, and 150 million coming from the local partner through the use and redirecting of existing taxes in that community. So what this really looked at was trying to integrate the most efficient and effective financing package that could be put together to utilize existing tax revenues, the convention center taxes that are currently in place and imposed by the state in the city of Minneapolis, to redirect some of those in connection with and integrated with the state financing that relates to the charitable gaming, which will be talked about shortly. To put those together in a way to maximize the use of those funds to come up with an efficient financing package, which indeed at the end finances $548 million in capital. In terms of operations, as previously mentioned, the operations really break down between two sources. The Vikings private sector paying $13 million a year, and the convention center taxes covering the $7.5 million a year for a total of $20.5. The state does not have any ongoing obligation as it relates to the operations of the facility.
We have one last slide that I believe we've passed out that talks about the return on investment for the state. In total dollars, the state, which includes principal and interest, the state is putting in $618 million, and it will receive $1.140 in revenue for that $618 million investment. That's a profit, if you will. That's a return on investment, if you will, of $522 million over the 30 years of this project. Put in present dollars, net present value, the state is putting in $398 million and will receive $144 million more than it put in, which is a 36% return on that state's investment. Myron?
My name is Myron Franz, Revenue Commissioner for the state of Minnesota. I just want to speak briefly about some of the concepts involved in the electronic pull tab and electronic bingo source of revenue. As we've said earlier, this is an existing tax, and so for a number of years, the charities have been asking, in the lawful charitable gambling industry, have been asking to expand and allow for electronic games to be played. We've had the lawful gambling charities have been involved since 1945. We've had a pull tab for over 30 years. So this is a proposal really by the charities that wanted to include electronic games. In working closely with the charities, they've asked for some tax simplification, some tax reduction, and what we've been able to do in working with the Gambling Control Board is take a look at the existing network that we have in Minnesota, which is the largest charitable gambling network in the country, and estimate based on what the current activity is, what will change with the use of electronic games. That's the revenue estimates you've been hearing about. And in Senator Rosen's bill, the proposal that we have in that bill would raise an additional $66 million for profits for charities to be used around the state for their charitable purposes. That, coupled with the $44 million we estimate that they get each year, brings their total to about $110 million in profits for a full year of operation. The state would get about $59 million in additional tax revenue above and beyond the current $36 or $37 million that we currently get. So the bill is structured so that the original $36 million goes into the general fund, and the increase above that would go into a special account to fund the state's obligation to pay the bonds.
What's next?
Senator Rosen?
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for being here. And I'd also like to thank Representative Morrow and Senator Bonoff for being here. As you can tell, this is a very bipartisan effort. Representative Lanning would have liked to have been here, but he did have to go home to Moorhead and get some things done up there. We haven't been home for a couple of weeks now, so he's here in spirit, and they're going to continue working on the bill this afternoon because they do have a hearing coming up on Monday. So very excited to see this moving forward. And again, I cannot stress the work in a bipartisan manner, the number of hours that this has, thousands of hours by all of the above and many people behind us working to get this forward. And I think we have a good bill on the table. I think it's the best workable stadium bill that has ever been presented and has gotten this far. And we are expecting this to pass. And we have some work to do next week, but had a meeting with Senator Bach this morning and Senator Bonoff, and it was a very good meeting about the direction, how many votes. We have a little work to do, but we are on the same page, and I think that's the most important part. Representative Morrow?
Well, thank you. And yes, I'm pitching in for Maury Lanning today. Maury had to go home. I know he wanted to be here, and Maury and I will be talking this afternoon about ensuring what that final bill looks like when we get on the floor on Monday. Just a couple of comments I would add. I've always seen this as a quality of life investment. 3 million Minnesotans watch or listen to a Vikings game. And I think just seeing around the halls this week all the kids wearing purple as they were touring the Capitol attests to the importance of the team and the importance of keeping the team here in Minnesota. The high school league games as well that were mentioned are another important contribution to the quality of life. At that point, I just want to know, is there a reasonable source of money and a reasonable cost that's being requested of the state? And I think both Ted and Craig have answered that question. I do want to make, though, one final note. I do hope over the coming days, over this weekend and on Monday, that as folks share with Senator Rosen, with me, with Senator Bonoff, their ideas, either for or against the stadium, that I hope folks will keep those communications respectful. We've been hearing stories about some emails and phone calls that I would say have crossed the line. And no matter where one stands on the stadium, for or against, what I'm hoping over the coming days is we analyze the information that's being brought forward, we listen carefully, as I know that Senator Rosen, Senator Bonoff, and I are listening carefully, and that we take a special care not to cross over lines and get into language that's really not appropriate. And with that, I would turn to Senator Bonoff.
Senator Bonoff?
Yeah, just a few words, and I have been on the working group, and both Senator Bach and myself have been as leaders of the minority party in the Senate. You've heard a lot about the facts about this deal. I just wanted to say a few words about the intangible benefits of making sure the Vikings stay here. I grew up going to Vikings games. My family had season tickets when I was little, and one of my most cherished memories are when the days were so cold that my mom said, "I am not going." My dad would bring me, and I would be in my snowmobile suit, and I would be sitting in the cold at Met Stadium watching those Vikings. And so they're an important part of the past that makes the Minnesota tradition, and that's what I'm hearing from the people of my district. I think that we want to honor that past, but also make sure that we let our children have the Minnesota Vikings in their future. So it is with that in mind that I have listened to the people that I represent on both sides, and after carefully weighing what you've heard before you, I have chosen to and will support the stadium.
Thank you, Senator Bonoff. Well, I'll just Lester, you're up next.
No, we can answer questions.
Oh, good. Okay.
Go ahead. You can wrap it up.
Well, I'll just finish up by saying a lot is written and talked about in politics today, that things are broken, that people can't come together and decide big things or solve things. And if you really stop and think about what you've seen over this past couple of years, you've seen what is in some ways the best of politics. It's a bipartisan coalition being handed an incredibly tough problem that has been around for 12 years and coming up with a solution that made all of us give a little and often a lot. We started down this road, and we were given a very tough challenge. Build a stadium, which hasn't been done in 12 years, and come up with a plan that doesn't take any state general fund dollars, and certainly in my city's case, no property tax dollars. Many, many meetings with very complex financial analysis and a whole lot of tough discussions came forward with a plan that really, as I say, had all of us giving quite a bit. We then brought it to the legislature and brought it to my city council. What was interesting about that is the more people looked at this plan, the more support we got. I know many of you covered a press conference over here where I stood up alone without support from our city council. As we walked that through the process, as people understood that, as they got the details of this very good, strong proposal, we got the support we needed at the city council. The same has been true at the Capitol, where people for many times wrote this off as dead. But it kept coming back, and it stayed in place because this represents a consensus looking at a tough problem. I don't think this is a perfect bill. I do think, however, this is one of the best examples in many years of a bipartisan group solving a big, tough issue. And after 12 years, I'm really excited that we are on the brink of getting this done. I grew up like Senator Bonoff. I grew up in a Vikings fan household. In the 60s, growing up in our family, we had huge family political discussions every Sunday, and we fought about everything. But every Sunday, we also went out to the Vikings game, and we dressed up, and we looked like snowmobile people and Michelin men in purple, but we went out there, and we were part of that, and that helped keep our family together. And my son, who's off at college today, or has graduated from college, I don't see as much as I'd like to, but when we're on the phone, we talk about what happened in the draft. And that is the sort of thing that is part of an infrastructure in a state. People can make a lot of arguments about whether these facilities are worth it or not. As a kid who grew up here, as a dad who grew up here, as a fan who goes to see families at these events, this is a good part of Minnesota, and this, I believe, represents a good piece of Minnesota politics that's about to solve one of our longest-running issues.
Well, I would just say briefly that thank you to everybody at the table, and as Senator Rosen said, everybody behind this group that has been working so hard on this for so many years. But we are grateful. We are at the last step of the process. We appreciate the governor's leadership, the support from all four caucus leaders, because we have the bills on the floor. And there was assistance from all four corners in the legislature to get these bills on the floor. We're at the final step of the process after many months and years. Our Viking fans and stadium supporters are mobilizing from every corner of the state. And we have the business community and organized labor that stand with us and behind this project. And I would agree with Representative Morrow that we do need to ask our supporters to be respectful in this debate, but we expect to have a strong presence on Monday when the bill is up and on the floor, but that we're in position to get this resolved, and we're hopeful that we can push it over the top starting on Monday.
Any questions?
The governor said today that the commissioner of the league spoke with Representative Zellers, who told him there were 34, 35 votes. First of all, is that true?
Well, I don't know. I know that there is what the governor said. Yeah. Well, I know that the commissioner is in communication with our state leaders, and it's a good thing because the NFL is very involved in this discussion. But I'm not sure the nature of their conversations. I do believe the NFL is going to respond to that issue, and I think there may be a statement forthcoming. But I don't speak for the NFL, and I think they intend to speak for themselves.
Well, one follow-up, if I could. The speaker says he's not going to be involved in getting votes. There may not be enough in the Republican side. He said it's up to the Vikings and the governor to get those votes. Are there the votes?
Well, if the House DFL puts up 34, which Leader Thiessen has said they would, and we have a strong core of support on the Republican side, I think it's within striking distance. It's in position, and there's a handful of the folks that we need to come our way, and we're working hard to get there. But again, I think it's in position, and I think the Speaker of the House has been helpful in this process, and he's a good man. He's a Viking fan. He's got a couple issues he's raised, but he has been helpful in this process, and he has helped us get this bill to the floor. And so that's what we wanted. This is where we are. We're in position to get it done. We got a little work to do, and we're doing it today through the weekend and Monday to get over the top.
So you don't have the votes?
Well, it depends on what amendments come, depends on what the bill looks like. I think we're in position to get it resolved.
Both the Wild and the Twins put some money into their projects after the deal was done. Are you going to sweeten this pot here in the next 3 days to hope to win some votes? Is there an October surprise waiting for us on Monday?
Well, I would say I know that there's a lot of work going on about process and conference committee, and because we do have a Senate bill and we have a House bill, and they somehow have to be merged into one proposal, and so I know there are more discussions to come. But in terms of our contribution, we feel $427 million up front and $13 million a year stand up well locally, nationally, 50% of the costs, life cycle costs of the project. But we'll see where the final negotiation goes. But we think we're in for a significant amount.
Are you ruling out any more money?
I think we need to see where the final discussion goes. But there's a lot of issues on the table, and we need to sort it out. But we feel strongly about $427 million up front and $13 million a year.
So user fees, would that cause you to bring your contribution down to user fees?
Yeah, there is a proposal. I think Senator Howe has a proposal in the Senate on user fees, and we have a letter that we'll distribute when that amendment comes forward. But I think the bottom line is that proposal would shift the state's share of the cost onto the team and our fans, and it's upwards of $30 to $40 million a year that will be shifted from the state and to the team. It just would go back to the point that Chair Mondale referenced in terms of the negotiated agreement that was negotiated in good faith over years and months, over the last few months, to lock this into an agreement. That part of it was that the team would get the NFL and Vikings related revenue, and there was also a prohibition in the term sheet for additional taxes on revenue streams in the stadium. We would stand by that. And I'm concerned on the user fee proposal that it's a false promise, that it's not. We will not support it. It will not build a stadium. I think the package that Representative Lanning and Kriesel and Senator Rosen and Bonoff and others are supporting and presenting is the agreement that has been reached. And I can defer to Ted on that too.
And just let me reiterate, the Vikings' total contribution is $754 million over the 30-year project. If they stay 20 more years, that will increase significantly. That is a significant investment on the part of the team. We structured this so we wanted this facility to be strong, stable, to be able to be renewed as time and events change over time. So we have the Vikings, and we wanted to make sure that we could, as I mentioned earlier, provide the kind of venue for our youth, for our sports, for our civic activities, and that it's going to be a good building that could change and that you could do things. We think getting a proper and strong amount of rent, a sure amount of capital, is the best way to do it. Where these, if you look at these stadiums where they've gotten into trouble, it's almost always the public that gets held. Because they come up with funding schemes or they don't think about the long term. See the Target Center. This is a well thought out deal with certain amounts of dollars coming in from the Vikings and the city that will allow this facility to be healthy for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, and to renew itself. We wanted certainty. We wanted no risk from the taxpayers. We also want the Vikings to run their operation. That's what they're good at. They're good at marketing. They're good at sales. They're good at football. The public is not. And so we do not want the public involved in running the Vikings team. We wouldn't be good at it. And there's examples like in Denver where they got involved in certain things and it didn't work well. So we want the Vikings to run this facility for $1.3 million for 10 games, and then we want the public to run this facility for what we do well, and that's make sure that our kids and our organizations have a place that's available and priced at one that's affordable. And so that's how this structure was put out. Certainty, no risk to the taxpayers. Let's do what we do well in the public and let the Vikings do well in the private side.
In our delegation.
What if it fails?
That won't happen.
Can you make that promise?
No, I can't. I think that you go ahead.
honestly never thought about that, Jeff. This absolutely has to pass, and in every corner of the state, as Lester said, people are talking about this bill. The big picture is what's the best for the state, and I think we need to go back to that over and over again. Is it best for the state for our pro team to be a true free agent and have the possibility of leaving because they need to survive and thrive as a business? Is it best for the state to have no place for our high school leagues to play and be a centerpiece for the state, for all the organizations and groups that want to come? No. So I honestly have never thought about it failing, but we are doing our homework. We're handling this bill very carefully, diligently, in a very bipartisan way, and that's how things get passed. And I, again, want to say that I've never seen anything. I've been here 10 years, and I've never heard of another bill, another subject, where throughout the state, whether you're for, against, or you really don't care, people want a vote on this bill here. And they know what's going on, and I think it's our responsibility as a legislature to get this bill passed.
Senator, can I follow up? I'm sorry. But I guess I would say, what if it succeeds? What if this actually works? If this actually works, the Vikings stay in Minnesota. If this actually works, we have the possibility to bring a Super Bowl to Minnesota. If this actually works, we have the possibility to bring a Final Four to Minnesota. If this actually works, we keep millions and millions, around $600 million to $800 million in state income tax in the state budget if this actually works. We bring all the events to the city of Minneapolis and keep the city of Minneapolis a premier city in our nation. So to me, it's not does this, what happens if it fails? My question is, what happens if it works?
For many of you that can answer, what, if anything, is going to happen between now and Monday in terms of small group meetings to talk with sort of fence sitters, meetings to get together to tweak the bill yet before Monday, any of that sort of stuff? What's it going to look like between now and Monday?
Monday is game day, and this group, the governor, organized labor people all across the state, business leaders, both in the corporate headquarters and Main Street, fans, people who believe this is a good idea, are at work. And we're going to be working all day, all night, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and all day Monday. And so, yeah, you can't count on a vote count, and anybody that tells you exactly what it's going to be and what the outcome is on Monday hasn't been around here very often. So we've got our work to do. Monday is game day. We're going to be ready, and we're going to play aggressively, and we're going to get this vote, and we're going to pass it on to the Senate, and we're going to get this deal done.
We also are doing a very blatant call to people who care about this to let their voice be heard. Whether you've sent an email already, whether you've shown up already, we need the public to continue to weigh in. The public has helped turn this around. This was, and I think you reported, and I bet you reported accurately early on, that this was not a popular issue. That has changed. And the public has weighed in, and the more they've looked at this, the more they've said, we've talked about it for 12 years, get it done. And we need people to continue to carry that message. Show up. Make your voice heard. Don't be shy, because if we don't solve this now, we're going to be back here next year, and I don't think anybody wants to do this. We need to get on to other issues, and the time is now. It's game day, and let's go.
It's interesting because even after this last week with Representative Dean's proposal, the bonding proposal, I was kind of amazed how many misunderstandings of the bill that we have in place, my bill in place. There was a lot of misconceptions on that bill. And I remember when Senator Roebling, chair of Finance Committee, I was in front of her committee and she had a chance to really get into the bill. And she came up to me later, she actually called me too, and she said, that's a really good bill. Now that you look at this is the best bill we've ever had. And I think when people have a chance to really look into this bill, maybe make some good changes, but the term sheets that were negotiated, that have come forth, are very, very good and very workable, and I'm excited to bring this to the floor. And I'm excited to get the votes, because as Representative Morrow said, this is all good. This is all, we have to stay positive and not think about what's going to happen if it doesn't pass. It will pass. You don't work on a bill this hard to have it fail. So we're going to finish this bill.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.